Hello, family members. Not having the greatest day ever here, but I've been sitting here marinating on a bit of a rabbit hole that I've been going down, and I figured I would just wanted to talk about that. All right, so I was born in '82, graduated high school in 2000, graduated college in 2004. I have always had internet the entire time I've been an adult, but I haven't had it the entire time I've been alive. And internet culture really wasn't as developed in those early days as it is now. I mean, obviously. I used to use AOL Instant Messenger and Live Journal, and I was even there for MySpace. Somewhere in there, I just kind of like petered out, probably like mid 2000s. And so I just missed like a lot of internet culture. I never used Tumblr. I very infrequently used Twitter before I just stopped. um, you know, uh, I there's a lot of like very well known cultural touchstones in internet culture that I just missed. And so the rabbit hole that I'm currently on, I blame it on Big Joel. It's all his fault, darn it. I watched this video about conservative comedy and I liked it. And I was like, oh, yeah, he talks about that Doug Walker's The Wall thing that Dan Olson had that video about. I tried to watch that once, but I just couldn't get into it. Maybe I'll go try that again. And boy, have I just been going on. Well, here's the thing. I didn't know who that guy was. I didn't have any like frame of reference for, who he is or why we should care or anything. And so it was just an incomprehensible video for me to watch the Dan Olson video. But then, rewatching it with some frame of reference, oh, okay, now I got it. Well, then I became like obsessed with it and I've rewatched Dan Olson's video like a million times because my brain just fixates on videos, and certain videos I end up watching like dozens of times over and over again until I've basically memorized it. I don't know why. That's just how my brain copes with stuff. And so once I've done that, then I'm like, maybe I ought to, like dig into this a little deeper. And so then I watched Lady Emily's video about demo reel and all sorts of stuff. And so I've just been going down this, like, there's all these people that are like so apparently self-evidently famous within the YouTube sphere that people didn't feel like they needed to like break down who they are. That Doug Walker guy and what's the other one, that the angry video game guy. I know about him because they talk about him on H Bomber Guy's plagiarism video. And then Lady Emily talked about him in one of her videos. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I kind of have some, like, this is how I learn about all this, like, mid 2000s to 2010s internet culture is I watch like video retrospectives about it on YouTube. I've done the same thing with like Tumblr stuff. Like I learned about that. For some reason, it's different types of voices that want to make that content. Let's see here, Sarah Z, Izzy's, uh, oh gosh, oh, strange eons, like, yeah, like, and so I let them just basically explain to me all this, like, well-known drama, and then, like, all of a sudden references that other people have made, like, make sense to me, and I'm like, oh, okay. it's so it's so interesting how much culture there was that I just wasn't even aware of, even though, it would have been what you would have called my tribe. Geez, when I was in when I was in college, rather, I used to use IRC to do like tabletop RPG games with my friends, so that we could play with people who weren't physically present. Like, oh my gosh. Like I was doing nerdy stuff. I had a GeoCity site. I like learned to code and stuff for it, like very minimally. Well, HTML. I learned a little HTML so I could make my website marginally better. And so if I had been born 5, 10 years later, I probably would have been as immersed in this culture as these creators that I watch now. But, I was out, I mean, partying. I was in my groupie phase. Like I had a friend who was a lead singer in a band, and I used to be the one who like drove him to shows and make his merch and and we just had a lot of fun. And then, I got a little bit older and it was like work, and then when you weren't working, you were over at your friend's house like smoking weed and drinking, or you were out at the bar or something like that. I wasn't spending time online. Like I had very little time for that. I didn't have a computer after I finished college until I absolutely had to have one for work, like a decade later. Well, no, probably not a full decade later. Maybe like 8 years later or something. It was a long time, you know? And I don't know. I find it fascinating. Like these children, the people who are like half a generation back from me, like their lives, their points of reference is so different. And it's just, I've watched their videos almost like anthropologist or something, like I'm trying to learn about this like foreign culture. And, I mean, because there's a lot of them that are just a bit younger than me, and thus the their lives were just so different. Like when I was growing up, literally, I grew up in the middle of nowhere in West Virginia. We didn't have cable. I could only get like 2.5 channels over the air, on my little fuzzy black and white TV, and my parents had a color TV in the main room. It was in the living room, but who cared? Because you couldn't really watch much. You know, like I couldn't even watch PBS. Like I didn't even get to watch like Sesame Street or Mister Rogers' Neighborhood or any of that stuff when I was growing up because we couldn't get that channel. And then by the early 90s, we finally got cable. And so I had MTV and Nickelodeon and things like that. And it kind of opened my world up a lot. Um, but, I grew up very deprived of media. And then all of a sudden, you get the internet, dial up internet in your house when you're a teenager. And you've got like Napster and you can download all the music you want. And it was just this wild west, and no one knew what the internet even was gonna be or how important it was gonna be. It was like, oh, look at all these things you could do with the internet. We had no idea how much really we'd be using it within a few years. Maybe it was a fad in It was just gonna go away like Betamax or something, you know. And I I just loved it. I loved being able to access so much more culture and meet new types of people. And, I like, we had an innocence about us in those first early internet days before, you know, people really understood that it was going to have staying power, you know. And now, it's just it's taken for granted. And 10 years after I started college, it was a completely different media landscape. And I don't know, it's interesting. I think that as people my age and older, kind of age out of society, so to speak, uh, a very different world is going to develop, because the way that people who are even 5 to 10 years younger than me have experienced culture, have experienced life, is just so starkly different than what I experienced. And I don't think that we've really fully found how much that's gonna like change us as human beings. And I also don't think that we've fully like understood how much human nature has not changed. That a lot of what we see as change is just window dressing, you know? So, anyway, that's just my little ramble about being a old lady living in a young people's world. Take care of yourself, family members. I hope you have a nice day. Bye.